This is the weekly review for the week of July 18th to the 22nd, as well as this week's Sunday preparation. So, coming into the week, I was bullish, and I said that there was going to be some type of buy side liquidity taken out. I didn't know if it was going to go up here into premium of the range on the daily time frame. Um, but we ended up taking out this daily short-term high here, as well as these H1 equal highs to complete the H1 market maker buy model on Monday. So one of the things that I noticed is that back here last week on Tuesday, I had my eyes here, and I thought that this was going to be the smart money reversal of the market maker buy model here, because I was anticipating a daily swing low to form, right? But I think that was one of the errors that I made in terms of anticipating that low to form, because here we actually had a swing low to form with Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So Monday, it was kind of like a no-brainer that we formed a swing low and we're close to these equal highs already. So because I didn't wait for that daily swing low to form last week, that's why I got burned here. I think this was on like the CPI news, and I had two longs in here and just immediately got taken out on this down candle because price took out Tuesday low. Tuesday low, because I was anticipating that to hold and form a daily swing low. So that's one of the observations that I noted down in my journal for this week. So going into Monday, I was bullish, and I was simply just looking for buys to complete that market maker buy model to take out these highs here. And one of the things that I noted was that even though we took out a daily swing high, we didn't have displacement to the downside. So we took out this swing high, but we shouldn't be bearish because there was no displacement down breaking market structure here, right? And I don't believe there was a SMT either. And also we were in that H1 market maker buy model that was almost complete. So coming into New York, which was here, I was eyeing this swing low to be rated. So prior to New York, I was expecting price to come down here, raid this swing low, and then form a setup, because we had bullish structure at the beginning during London with this raid on EU, taking out Asia low, breaking market structure up. And I was anticipating EU to retrace lower than GU, which it did because EU was the weaker of the pair, making the lower low here on the raid. So we took out the sell side here in a fair value gap and then had displacement to the upside. So I was just waiting for a fair value gap to form. And I was watching this live. I was watching this fair value gap here. The reason I didn't enter in on there because it wasn't in discount, right? This whole fair value gap was in premium. And I just didn't drop down to the lower time frames, but the other fair value gap down here in discount, this was a M1 fair value gap. And I just never really look at the M1, but this here was the mentorship setup. It just didn't happen on the M5 time frame. And again, I was fine with this shift in market structure, not waiting for the break in market structure up here because of all the other confluences that I said. That's why I was confident in taking this long, or looking to take a long here, but not actually taking it because, again, this wasn't in discount. And I just remember in terms of my emotions, I was feeling like this was going to be the low, and we were not going to get another kind of retracement, and that's exactly what ended up happening. So even though we had an institutional order flow entry drill here and here before taking out the highs up here, I didn't take them because I was just still waiting for price to come down into a premium, into a discount, right? So I was just looking at Man, these stupid ads. I was just waiting each time we formed a swing high. I was just like pulling my fib and waiting for it to go down into discount. But it didn't need to do that because it already did it here. And that's why I ended up missing this whole move up, even though I outlined it beforehand. So yeah, and then after taking out the buy side liquidity here, we had a reversal M1 shift in market structure and return to a fair value gap. This was another just logical trade for me. I didn't take it because I was, again, just waiting for the M5, but we didn't get anything on the M5, so the action was all on the M1 today. But in terms of the logic, it does make sense because we just took high time frame buy side, and it's 11 a.m. And just based on the daily power 3, price is going to need to retrace after it makes the high of the day at the end of New York or London close kill zone, right? So just based on the candle structure, that's why this makes a lot of sense to me. Then Tuesday, there really was nothing. We just had a rapid move up during London and consolidation in New York. So I didn't really have much to note for that day. So Wednesday is really where the action begins again, and also kind of like trips me up. So in my journal, I noted that for me, Wednesday was both a clean and a messy day at the same time. So on the daily time, or H1 or higher time frame, basically, I was still waiting for price to come up into this daily fair value gap and into premium. But Wednesday here, we had a nice raid of previous day high with SMT, right? And we formed a mentorship setup here. The entry, though, wasn't in a kill zone. And then we had this move down. Now, we broke market structure, but when I was seeing this, I didn't know if this was an institutional order flow entry drill short, like this, which is where I would have had my entry, or if this was a long for price to come back up into and reach premium, right? That's like right here. So I didn't know if it was going to come down here and go up because there was a lot of confluence here for buying, right? It was OTE of this and an H4 order block, as well as H1 fair value gap here. So I just felt that there was both evidence for longs and shorts. So that's why I didn't take a short here. Now the short ended up playing out, even though we had bullish structure here, right? We had SMT and raid, broke market structure, and returned to this fair value gap. Now this didn't play out, but the thing was that both the short and the long played out on GU, right? So even if you took a short here, right, it wouldn't have taken the low-hanging fruit liquidity, and you would have to weather all of this move in New York, which would just be a mindfuck if you were watching it. But GU, on Wednesday, we had that institutional order flow entry drill and taking out the low-hanging fruit. Then we had the same long setup, and it took out the low-hanging fruit liquidity here. If I don't change this, it's going to annoy me. So both setups worked on GU, but not EU. Not exactly sure why. So I took a break even on this trade just because I got in pretty late, or the time of day was late for entering. It was around 10:40. So at around here, I just went to break even and it stopped me out. So then this was before the high impact news on Thursday. There was the ECB news where they raised interest rates. So another thing that I noted at the end of the week was that, I mean, basically this entire week here just turned out to be consolidation. And I wrote a note in my journal that perhaps the two-sidedness that we got on Wednesday, the fact that both longs and shorts looked like they could have played out, could have been a foreshadow for the week that we weren't really going to do much, because that's what ended up happening. So on Thursday, we initially, prior to the ECB news, we had a long setup for him. Standard, just mentorship long setup. SMT with previous day's low. And we broke market structure up. And it went up to take the equal highs up here. These equal highs. Honestly, I didn't take this trade. I don't know why. I just didn't. I don't know if I just wasn't focused or what the fuck was going on, but I said that because we formed this like the setup prior to the news, that's kind of what gave the tip off that the news was going to be bullish. And then after we took the equal highs with SMT, I was watching this on the M1, and I took a paper trade short just because I felt that since we took buy side now, that we were going to come down and take sell side. But for the live trade, I was just waiting for M5 or M15, and that's where I ended up getting in. But the M1 had a shift in market structure here, and then I got in on this fair value gap. But I didn't take that live. I took this one live after the M15 and M5 broke. Well, originally I was looking for the M5 and to come back up to this breaker, but that didn't end up happening. So I just took the short at the equilibrium here. And originally I set my take profit to the low hanging fruit liquidity, but then there was these equal lows down here at the 101-200 level that I ended up targeting. And we had more high impact news on Friday, so that's why I ended up adjusting my TP, because this high impact news was during London and I wasn't going to be up during that time, so I just set a TP here. But price ended up front running the equal lows and just taking out the low hanging fruit, but also relative equal lows with respect to here. And I think that that's what tripped me up on Friday as well, because we had this Judas swing and moved down. And this was the same thing that we had on Wednesday, right? Like an institutional order flow entry drill short, or was this a long after taking previous day's low liquidity with this SMT? And it ended up being a long, and the long ended up playing out. And I took a loss here, and I moved my stop loss here to break even. But I'm thinking that the long on Wednesday with that institutional order flow entry drill short as well, we didn't take any high time frame liquidity here. We just came into like a fair value gap where here on Friday we took previous day low and relative equal lows liquidity with a SMT. So I think because we took that liquidity, and yeah, it's a Friday, it makes sense to reverse. But the thing that I noted in my like Discord was that I thought that this was going to come down, and like we're going to get an institutional order flow entry drill, take out these equal lows, and then come up. But we ended up having a shift in market structure here, and then a break in market structure, and just respecting these bullish fair value gaps. So what I ended up noting in my journal was that it was because we took this liquidity, and that's why we ended up having a reversal here, compounded with the fact that it was a Friday and the low of the week was made on a Friday. So it makes sense, like the structure and the logic of this makes sense. It's just that I took the trade anticipating the low of the week to be taking out these equal lows and then reversing. But perhaps after this shift in market structure is where I should have closed the trade, because we had the SMT here. So overall, I mean, it was kind of pretty confusing week for me. That just ended up being pretty much mostly consolidation. And another thing to note that ICT mentioned in the weekly review video that I didn't even notice was that GU was looking bullish. That we formed a dealing range, we took sell side, we took buy side, and then price retraced into this daily fair value gap on the 21st, and then went up here to take buy side on the 22nd. So looking at that this is clearly bullish. So looking on to next week, honestly, I'm just gonna wait, because price is still at the equilibrium of this range that we formed last week, and we have a bullish SMT here and a bearish SMT here. So honestly, this can go either way. I noted the daily fair value gap here because ICT said if we trade below that, we're going to go for that swing low. So I just marked that out on my chart. But yeah, pretty much I'm just going to wait for the price action on Monday, because I don't think you could have a bias here. This could go higher or this could go lower. And the same thing with DXY. We could probably come lower into this fair value gap and hit this order block here. But I'm not going to tie myself to a bias this week. And I think that that's just one of the things that I just continuously struggle with, is when I have a bias or when I have a liquidity target, that's the only thing that I focus on. And I'm like blinded by that, and I ignore everything else. Because just looking back at the structure of this week, especially the end of it, we took these equal lows and had SMT, and then formed a swing low and started moving up. And I'm shorting this here because I want it to come down here. So I think that's just like a real big flaw that I have as a trader. So let's see if I can improve on that coming into this week without a bias, and just see what price does, and not kind of get blinded by what I want price to do.